Once upon a time, a prince from another country wanted to marry the beautiful Maleen, daughter of the king of a powerful country. Because the king intended to marry her to someone else, the prince and number 39's request was rejected. But the prince and Maleen loved each other very much and did not want to live apart. One day, Maleen told her father, "I cannot and do not want to marry anyone else." The king was angry and ordered a tower to be built so that no sunlight or moon could enter the tower. After the tower was built, the king said, "You must live in this tower for 7 years. I want to know whether you will still be stubborn by then or not. In the tower there is enough food to last for 7 years." When the princess and her maid entered the tower, the door was sealed, and the two people now lived separately from the world outside. In the dark tower, it is impossible to distinguish between day and night. The prince often came around the tower, calling her name, but the call could not pass through the thick walls into the tower. What else can they do but cry? Time passed, the food and drink in the tower ran out, and the princess knew that the 7-year period was about to end. The princess thought the moment of liberation was near, but she still did not hear the sound of the hammer breaking the wall, nor did she see a single brick or stone falling from the wall. It seems the king has forgotten the princess. Seeing that the food was only enough for a short time and foreseeing a tragic death that could come to her, the princess said, "In this last step, we must find a way to destroy the wall." She used a kitchen knife to carve out the mortar. When she was tired, the maid would continue. After doing so, they finally took out the first stone, then the second, then the third. After 3 days, sunlight could shine into the tower, and the hole dug was quite big enough to see out. The sky was clear, a cool breeze blew at them, but the scene was so desolate. The royal palace is ruined and desolate. The capital and villages were burned to the ground, the fields abandoned, not a single person passing by. The two continued to dig. When the hole was big enough to get out, the maid came out first, followed by Maleen. But where to go now? Enemies trampled the country, chased the king, and massacred hundreds of families. The two of them intended to wander and find another country, with no place to stay and no one to give them any bread to eat. In that miserable situation, they had to eat bark and leaves to relieve hunger. They finally arrived in another country, but every time they knocked on the door to apply for a job, they were rejected, spurned, and no one had compassion for their situation. Afterwards, they went to the capital, went to the palace to apply for a job, but here people just told them to go somewhere else. A long time later, a chef accepted and told them to sweep up the kitchen ash. The prince, son of the king of this country, is Maleen and number 39's fiancé. The king and number 39's father asked him for a man who was bad in both personality and character. The wedding day had been set and the bride had arrived. But because she was so ugly and didn't and #39 want anyone to see her, the bride was forbidden from entering the palace, and Maleen had to bring food into the bride and number 39's room. The day of going to church to get married was coming. The bride was ashamed because she was ugly, afraid that if she showed her face on the street, people would mock and laugh at her. The bride called Maleen and said, "What a great blessing for you. I have a dislocated hip so I can and number 39's go out on the street. Please change me and put on the bride and number 39's clothes." There is truly no greater honor for you." Maleen just refused. "I Don and number 39 T dare accept that honor." The bride bribed her with gold and also refused. The bride angrily said, "If you Don and number 39 T listen to me, you will die." I only said one word and my head fell off my neck. Maleen had to obey, wearing bridal clothes and jewelry, looking so gorgeous. When Maleen entered the royal living room, everyone was stunned by her amazing beauty. The king told the prince, "That is the bride I chose for you. Please take her to church." The prince was very surprised, and thought, maybe this is the Maleen that I have always loved. But she was imprisoned in a closed tower and died. The prince and his bride went to church. On the way, seeing a thorn bush on the road, the bride said, "Thorn bush, little thorn bush, standing there alone, it seems like I have peeled off the leaves and branches, boiled into soup." The prince asked the bride, "What did you just say?" She replied, "Number." I suddenly remembered Maleen. The prince was surprised to see that the bride also knew Maleen, but he remained silent and said nothing. When the carriage was about to cross the small bridge into the churchyard, the bride said, "Don and number 39 T break the bridge, the girl is at home, just the bride, I and number 39 am not." The prince asked the bride again, "What did you just say?" She replied, "No, I suddenly remembered Maleen." "So are you familiar with Maleen?" "How do I know her?" "I and number 39, they only heard of her name." When the two of them arrived in front of the church door, she said, "Don and number 39 T break the door, the girl is at home, just the bride, I and number 39 am not." The prince asked, "What did you just say?" She replied, "Oh my God, I just remembered Maleen again." The prince took the necklace and put it around her neck and clasped it. The two entered the church, the priest put their hands together and performed the wedding ceremony. He took her home, but she didn't and #39 T say a word along the way. Returning to the palace, she immediately went to the bride and number 39's room, took off her beautiful clothes, took off all her jewelry, put on the grey apron of a kitchen ash sweeper, and only wore the gold necklace given to her by the groom. At night, people took the bride to the groom and number 39's room. To prevent the prince from realizing the deception, the bride and number 39's face was veiled. When everyone had left, the groom said to the bride, "What did you say to the thorn bush on the side of the road today?" The bride asked, "With which thorn bush? I didn't and #39 T talk to any thorn bushes." The groom said, "If it wasn't and #39 T you who said it, then you probably Aaron and #39 T the real bride." To avoid suspicion, she said, "Let me go find the maid." "It makes me confused, brother." She ran out and shouted to Maleen, "Servant, what did you say to the thorn bush?" "I and number 39 am just saying, thorny bush, little thorny bush, standing there alone, it seems like I have peeled off the leaves and branches, cooked into soup." The bride ran back to her room and said, "Now I remember what I said to the thorn bush." And she repeated the words she had just heard. The prince asked again, "When you cross the bridge, what do you say to the bridge in front of the church?" She replied, "The bridge in front of the church. I didn't and #39 T tell the bridge in front." of any church. If it and number 39 's not what you say, then I and number 39 am probably not the real bride." She said again, "Let me go find the maid. It and number 39 's confusing me, brother." She ran out and shouted to Maleen, "Hey maid, what did you say to the bridge in front of the church?" "Dear, I and number 39 am just saying, Don and number 39 break the bridge, the girl at home, I and number 39 am just the bride, I and number 39 am not." The bride shouted loudly, "Your crime deserves death." Then she hurried back to her room and said, "Now I remember what I said to the bridge." And she repeated the words she had just heard. The prince asked again, "So what did you say to the church door?" She replied, "With the church door. I didn't and #39 say anything to the church door. If it and number 39 's not what you say, then I and number 39 am probably not the real bride." She ran out and scolded, asking Maleen, "Hey maid, what did you say to the church door?" "Dear, I and number 39 am just saying, Don and number 39 break the door, the girl at home, I and number 39 am just the bride, I and number 39 am not." The bride got angry and shouted loudly, "Your crime deserves to be strangled to death." Then she hurried back to her room and said, "Now I remember what I said to the church door." And she repeated the words she had just heard. The prince asked again, "But where are the jewelry I gave you?" She replied, "Jewelry? You didn't and #39 give me any jewelry, did you? I personally put the gold necklace and the chain lock on you. If you Don and number 39 know that, then you and number 39 probably not a real bride." The prince removed the veil from the bride and number 39's face. He jumped back in fear when he saw that ugly face clearly. He said, "Where are you from? Who are you?" "I am your fiancé. I was afraid that when I went out, people would mock and laugh at my cousin, so I ordered my maid to sweep the kitchen ashes, put on wedding clothes, and go to church on my behalf." The prince said, "Where is that girl? Go call her here, I want to see her face." She went out and told the guard that the girl sweeping the kitchen ash was a traitor and had to take her immediately to the front yard to be beheaded. The guards grabbed Maleen and number 39's hand and pulled her away. She screamed for help, and her cry for help reached the prince and number 39's chamber. Hearing the cry for help, the prince quickly ran out and ordered her to be released immediately. The torch was brought, and the prince immediately recognized the gold necklace he had given him at the church. The prince said, "You are the real bride, the one who went with me to the church for the ceremony. Come with me to my room." When there were only 2 people left in the room, the prince said, "On the way to the church, you mentioned the name of Maleen, my fiancée. I can and number 39 imagine, Maleen herself is exactly like you." She replied, "I am Maleen, the person who because of you was imprisoned for 7 years in a dungeon, suffering from hunger, thirst, and hardships during those years. But today I saw the sunlight, went to church with you for the ceremony, and now I am your official wife." The guy and the girl kiss. They lived happily together until their hair turned gray. The fake bride was punished appropriately. Maleen and #39's prison tower still stands there. Every time they pass the tower, children often sing, with a sad personality, "Who in number 39's in there? Is it Maleen? Praise those who have the will, wait patiently, Miss Hans." Thank you for joining us for today's fairy tale. We hope these stories bring joy and meaning to your day. If you love our channel, please hit the subscribe button so you won't miss any exciting tales. Wishing you a good night and sweet dreams. See you in the next story.